Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Just Saying Football with Jack and Sean. I'm your host, Sean Gann, alongside my partner, Jack Nicholas. We're here to bring you news, notes, weekly updates, and game analysis of your favorite teams from around the league. Now, the chance, go check out our website, justsayingfootball.com. Follow us on Instagram at Just Saying No GWJS for article and video updates. And don't forget to check us out on Spotify and get us in your ears at Just Saying Football. Buddy, it's some of the best times of the years where we just get to make mock drafts and
Yeah,
predict where teams are going to draft this year in April.
I know. And here we are. We're going to do a little exercise today. We're going to go over Sean's second mock draft live as he makes it here. Look at the process, look at the players he likes, look at everything along those lines, and really get this take on a draft class that is pretty polarizing. There's so many positions and teams that are needing it after last year. We saw so many injuries in the league. People are looking to load up with rookies and build the future. So let's get it started, Sean, with number one, Chicago. Take us through your second mock draft here.
Yeah, let's jump right into it. So I'm going to do no trades in this one, although I do want it to be known that 11, 12, and 13 with the Vikings, the Broncos, and the Raiders are all teams that could trade up in this draft. Obviously, the Vikings did get a second first round pick this year, so there's rumors that they're going to do that. So just want to put that out there. I'm going to do no trades. This is also based off of some pro days and the combine now, so that we've got some time to take in everything. All right. First off this board, it's where everybody knows they're going. It's Caleb Williams. That one is without question. I, however, I'm not gonna change my number two. I'm still leaning with Jaden Daniels. I don't buy the smokescreen of JJ McCarthy at number two. I think that is just to get people a little bit nervous. I think that Washington is locked in with them for sure. All right, now coming in at New England at number three. I think this is a 1, 2, 3 quarterback. However, I think this is where the smoke screen begins to get bought into, and I think that they're going to end up going with JJ McCarthy. Now, this is Jerod Mayo's first time as a head coach, right? He's got to get his play. He's got to get his guy at quarterback. Oftentimes, the head coach quarterback relationship becomes so important, as we all saw already in New England. So they
Yeah.
got to lock it in here. All right. Obviously, you got to get playmakers for your guy Kyler Murray. You don't have Hollywood Brown anymore. You're going to get the best wide receiver in the draft in Marvin Harrison Jr. at number four. That's not changing for me whatsoever. All right. Number five here, best tight end is finally going to get taken off the board. Now, this is double trouble for all teams because he can block really well, but he can also catch the ball really well. So it's going to be a nice little 1-2 combo for them to utilize in Jim Harbaugh's offense and allow Justin Herbert to get some protection, just a little bit. All right, now the
Wow.
Giants are an interesting one, right? They could go Drake May. They could go quarterback here. But I like them to go Malik Neighbors. They get finally a playmaker for the New York offense that they have longed for. The Jets have one in Garrett Wilson. The Giants going to get theirs in Malik Neighbors, the wide receiver at LSU. All right. Tennessee is now on the board. They ended up getting a handful of, they got Calvin Ridley, so they got their playmakers in DeAndre Hopkins and Calvin Ridley. It looks like they're all in on what is his face? Will Levis. So they're going to go out and they're going to get a day one starter. And they're going to get Joel. They're going to get some protection for this offensive line. They don't have Derrick Henry anymore, which means you got to just build an offensive line, get as much protection as you can because you cannot rely on him the way they had been the last few years. All right, moving this right along. We have the Falcons. They got not my guy, Kirk Cousins, uh, currently. But they do got some playmakers. There's possibility here they could opt for another offensive playmaker right here. But I think you got to double down on this defense after you just signed big on your quarterback. They're going to get the edge rusher, Dallas Turner from Alabama, to
The
help them out.
first defensive player off the
First
board at
defensive player off
eight.
the board at 8 at long last. Okay. So the Bears here become a very interesting one for me because there's part of me that really does want to go Rome Odunze as a wide receiver out of Washington. I'm not a big fan of the Keenan Allen signing the way everybody is. We're paying him a lot of money. He's 32. He is injury prone. He's never played in the cold. So there could be an injury for him, which means that they'd be down a star wide receiver at number two. They could also go Teron Arnold here and get a playmaker aside Jalen Johnson, which would be absolutely incredible. And that's where I'm going to lean that they go towards. I think that they're doubling
Oh,
down in this defensive system right now, especially when you got Addison and Jefferson in their division, and they got some playmakers out in Green Bay, like Jordan Love and his guys. So you got to just make sure that you get this defense up and ready for it. All right, we got the Jets on the board.
And the
There's a lot of
Jets are the
options
most
here.
notorious pick in the draft always.
They oftentimes get some room. Now, I originally had them going offensive line here. I had them going Troy Fatunu out of Washington, but they got out. They made some trades. They ended up signing some guys. They really shored up that offensive line. So I feel like this is where they begin to move away from them. They don't have a lot of playmakers for that offense. They end up lucking out and they get Romo Dunez, the wide receiver
Wow.
out of Washington, falls right into the lap. They get a playmaker. All right. This is where things get interesting for me as a Vikings fan. Um, I was big on Penix and still am. He had a great pro day to me. Drake May sitting right there. But I'm
That's
going that
feasible.
after all of this and what they saw, they end up going Michael Penix at number 11. Why? Because they have Denver and Las Vegas right behind them. There's no trades in this. So they got to get the guy that they most believe in. They end up getting Michael Penix Jr., the quarterback out of Washington and also Indiana for a time, which means that Drake May falls perfectly to Denver at number
Wow.
12.
Which nobody
Great for
has
them.
predicted. We both had Drake May in our top three, but as Sean said, if there's a JJ McCarthy ladder, keep an eye out for how far Drake May falls.
Absolutely.
So that's
Absolutely.
13.
All right, 13. I originally had Arnold going here, but he got taken. So what is Vegas gonna do? They're gonna go out, they're gonna Quinion Mitchell out of Toledo. They're gonna try to help out this secondary. They don't get their quarterback yet, but don't forget there's still Bo Nix, could be a quality pick in these later rounds, or maybe a Spencer Rattler if you're that kind of fan, in the fourth round or fifth round potentially. Saints are on the board.
If you're
It
that
was
guy.
a tough year uh for them. This was a tough year for the Saints, I think, in a lot of respects. Now, I originally had them going offensive line here, and I think that would be still a great move if they opt to do that. This is offensive line heavy draft, but Jared Verse is sitting right there at 14, and as much as we all love Cam Jordan, he is not going to be around forever. So they go and they start to get his replacement that will get to learn under him and Jared Verse, and that's a quality pick coming to them at number 14. Um, Now I originally also had the cornerbacks going here to Indianapolis, but they were taken off. Now Nate Wiggins is right there, and that is pretty tempting. Don't get me wrong. And I really like that for them. But I think this is where they end up drafting another wide receiver. We're going to go Brian Thomas Jr. here, who's going to go a little bit earlier than you really expect in this year's draft. The Colts need some more playmakers outside of Michael Pittman. They go out and they get that for Anthony Richard and this team. All right. This is going to be a fun and interesting draft for the Colts, I think, this year. All right. Moving on to Seattle at number 16. They need some offensive line help. And I do really want to go some of these tackles, but their interior offensive line has struggled mightily. This is where Jackson Powers Johnson, this is an unchanged pick for me. He still goes early. This is a needed pick right now for Seattle more than anything. I
I
love how
love
much
that. Keep
love
him
how
in the
much you agree
Pacific
with this,
Northwest too.
right? He knows the area really, really well. It's perfect. All right. Keeping this right along. Jacksonville is not looking out on their playmakers right now. Calvin Ridley went away. They could go offensive line. They could go defensive line. There's a lot of needs for this team. But to me, what I'm most worried about is their secondary. We're
Oh,
gonna
is this
grab.
where Nate Wiggins
This is
goes?
finally where Nate Wiggins goes. He's gonna stay in or not stay in Jacksonville. He's gonna head over to Jacksonville, and that's great for them. Now the Bengals, they got their offensive tackles this year,
Yeah.
which is great for them. Um, my bad. Excuse me. Sorry.
Boy.
And this is a tough one for me. I'm not 100% sure what they'll do. There's a possibility that I could see them trading back. That being said, we're going to take Brian Murphy here. We're going to help out this defensive line. All right. We're going to get
Yeah,
some
it's
depth on this
huge.
defensive line. And that's going to be something that they absolutely need. Now, Olu has fallen here. And I'm so sorry because he's a great offensive tackle, but he falls no further because
One
the
of the
Rams.
harder things in this class, just to note, the better position group is the O line right now, but they are falling with all these
We
scenarios.
got we got the playmakers going early in this one. We got some teams a
Yeah.
little bit worried and that kind of stuff. So we finally have Ole going here. He's going to help out Matthew Stafford. Stafford's going to have
Ooh,
a nice time finding his guys, Puka Nakua, and oh my God, what is his first name?
Cooper Cup.
Cooper Cup. I was like, I know his last name is Cup. I have my cup right here. All right, moving this right along, we have the Pittsburgh Steelers. They got their guy, Dangerous, Russell Wilson, you know, and they got Justin Fields.
Got another guy.
They got another guy. Najee Harris is back, and I loved him coming out of college, and I do expect him to have a great career after this year, whether it be in the gold and black or somewhere else. But this is finally where they get some offensive line help for this team. They got Broderick Jones last year. Here they get Talisi Funga, and they're going to help out this offensive line, protect Russell Wilson so he can make his throws to George Pickens. Deontay Johnson, who sadly is no longer there. They're going to miss out on a playmaker, though. But they got to get some help for Russell Wilson. All right, we got the Miami Dolphins.
Now, where do these guys go? You saw Mike McDaniels looking at those receivers the other day, but do
I
they need a
know.
receiver?
You know, they put out a nice little offer, supposedly, to the man, the myth, the legend, Odell Beckham Jr., and there's rumor he might sign there, and that'd be great. They definitely need defensive help. But what
Ooh.
they are severely lacking, and it's the one thing that's been lacking for a handful of years now, and that's offensive line. I have a Marius Mims going here, and I think that that's where he's
Ooh.
going to end up going. They're going to get their guy to protect uh Tua. They're going to be able to make sure he doesn't get any more concussions, make sure he's able to get the ball to all their playmakers down the field. That starts with the offensive line. Everybody relies on the offensive line. No one you can't have a successful team without a successful offensive line unless you get your occasional Tom Brady or Patrick Mahomes
Yes.
that can overcome these things, but not everybody is them. All right.
Got to keep two upright.
Absolutely. It becomes it's the most important thing for that team. Now, there's a lot of needs for this Philadelphia team. Definitely cornerback. You could go Cooper DeJean here. They could get some offensive line help, especially in the interior. If they wanted to kind of reach a little bit earlier, they do need some safety help. But for me, and what I'm leaning towards the most is I'm leaning towards Kool-Aid McKinstry. I do think that they get their cornerback. I think that they get a
Ooh.
guy that's gonna really
That's good.
excel in this defensive system. Cooper DeJean's falling. I know that will upset a handful of people, and I'm sorry for that. All right, 23. We got the Minnesota Vikings. They bought in on the hype of Michael Penix. They bought in on it even more after the pro day, which makes sense. He had a great one. They do need a lot of help on their defensive line, especially after Daniil Hunter left. We're gonna get Latu here finally. They get some edge help. This
Oh,
defense gets
that's good.
young. They don't trade. They don't have to worry. They get their quarterback of the future, and they get a defensive edge rusher that they desperately needed. All right,
I will note though, I like him or Newton for you guys. If you go QB first,
I I
Newton
also
could replace a lot going on down
I
there.
also do love Chop Robinson. If you ever pull up his
That's
highlight
your
reel,
guy.
how quickly he gets to the quarterback is it's impressive. I would not be disappointed if Brian Flores wants to throw him on there. Now, I originally had uh the Dallas Cowboys going Brian Thomas Jr. here, but he goes a little bit earlier in my draft in this one. Um, I they could go Donnie Mitchell here. They could keep him in Texas. I don't know if that's what they're going to end up doing. And the main reason why is they weren't able to come to a contract with Tyron Smith, and then they weren't able to come to a contract with Dak Prescott. It's going to be dealt with this next offseason. They're going to get some offensive line help. They're going to get JC Latimer out of Alabama.
Ooh.
They're going to do their best to protect Dak Prescott. They're going to have to try to find one of these guys, a playmaker in the later rounds, or maybe sign a potential free agent. But it's going to be a tough one. All right. Moving this right along, we have the Green Bay Packers. This is going to be an unchanged pick for me. They still need some secondary help. A few of their guys went away in free agency. They're going to lock in another Midwestern guy in Cooper DeJean here
Ooh,
to help them out.
nice.
He goes from Iowa to Wisconsin. It'll be a nice, easy drive in a U-Haul with him and his family. So it
Play in
won't
the
be too
cold.
bad. Yep, get to play in the cold. He'll be used to it. He knows it very well, and that's not a surprise here. All right. So I originally had the Tampa Bay Buccaneers getting Latu, but sadly for them, he goes a little bit earlier in mine now to the Minnesota Vikings. Now, I mentioned a little bit ago who I love. I do love Chop Robinson. He's sitting right there. They could also go some interior offensive line. They could go wide receiver here. Mike Evans, he did sign that extension.
Yeah,
for sure, and they still have Chris Godwin, but it's a tempting offer there. They could go Ladd McConkey right there, or even Kean Coleman, depending on how they want to go. They could get some interior offensive line help out of Duke. But to me, after losing Shaq Barrett, they end up going Chop Robinson. They just stick
I
to what they
like
know.
that.
It's Todd Bowles at the head coach. They get a defensive guy. They don't risk it on an offensive line. This offensive line draft class is deep. They've gone late in my draft. They're probably banking on the fact they can get a good guy early on in the second round or third round. So just keep that in mind. All right. We have the Arizona Cardinals. Now, this is
Nice.
another unchanged pick for me. This is where Newton goes out of Illinois. He gets to go to
Ooh,
Arizona, plays a little bit warmer. He's a great defensive lineman. I've seen a few trades also where Arizona sends the Kyler Murray to Minnesota. I don't think that's going to happen. I think that they're going to stick with him. I think that they trust what he could do. He played well when he came back. They get some defensive help. They get some offensive help in this year's draft. They get the best wide receiver, and they're happy with their two first rounders. We got the Buffalo Bills. We've
oof.
said it over
Another playoff exit.
and we've said it over and over again. They need more playmakers. They no longer have Gabe Davis. He's in Jacksonville now. I had him on my fantasy team. I could never seem to figure out when when to play him. It was
Just if you
killing
ever
me.
started him on a week that he didn't do well, just know that was the week
Yeah.
Sean had him in.
And yeah, so it was rough for me. They could
Now
go
you do it in
defensive.
Jackson.
Yep, they could go Darius Robinson here. They could get some interior offensive line help here. They let a handful of their guys go. Part of me wishes that they could go linebacker, but this linebacking core
Mm,
is just not the strength of this draft class here. And to me, the best defensive lineman in Brian Thomas and Newton just got taken off the board. So I don't think they're going
yeah,
to risk it there. I think that they're going to get a Donnie Mitchell here to try to pair him with Stefon Diggs. I don't think that they risk it on not getting a playmaker right there. Again, the Cowboys could also go him. I just think Dallas is a little bit more worried about Dak Prescott's health because if he gets injured,
yeah,
then he goes into the contract season. It might give him a little bit more weight, also the perspective of how that looks. So to me, they just play it safe here. And they get their wide receiver out in
yeah.
Buffalo. But that's why I
I
don't
like
think
that.
Cowboys get him earlier. All right. We got the
Yeah,
Lions. Now, the Lions lost a few of their cornerbacks, and they do need an edge rusher, and it's very tempting to maybe go one of these guys. I actually think I originally had them going Darius Robinson, and that's where we're gonna keep him. We're gonna get him
I
in
like
that
that.
first round. He's gonna slide in there. A lot of people have him going in the second. I think he's gonna go in the first. They're gonna pair him with Aiden Hutchinson. They could also go cornerbacks if they wanted to for Detroit.
Mm,
But I think at that point it gets a little bit thin. They're not going to risk it on a first round. No offense to those players who might end up being
yeah.
the best picks of the game. All right, we got
Could see
Baltimore.
them trade back, by the way. I could see
Yeah,
Detroit trading back from that spot if they see someone they don't like,
and if they're
for
able to
sure.
snag a handful of second rounders and maybe a fourth, I think that they'd be really, really happy. So this is where I think it gets interesting because Baltimore has a handful of needs to me. And you just got a great offensive tackle sitting here right now, and that's really tempting, I think. However, after what Xavier Worthy did at the combine and breaking the speed, I think right there they're going to end up getting him. They no longer have Odell Beckham Jr. Rashad Bateman, I loved him coming out of Minnesota. He still hasn't quite fit into that system. They'll have Mark Andrews again. They are going to have
Zay
Zay
Flowers.
Flowers. Now you get to get Xavier Worthy. This offensive unit becomes faster, faster, faster. And then they get to rely on Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry. Oh, so much
It all
fun.
sounds fake.
It sounds unreal, and with the way these offensive linemen are falling into the second round, they could get another guy up there to help shore up that offensive front. All right, moving this right along. We got San Francisco. They lost in the
Yeah,
Super Bowl to Kansas City. It was just a pick behind them. They're going to get some offensive line help. Troy Fatunu was not going to fall any farther. They're going to get him right there. They're just going to shore up what they need right there on the offensive line that they're missing, whose name isn't Trent Williams, So they're
yeah,
going to help him out. They're going to help out Brock Purdy. Hopefully they sign Brandon Ayuk. Now, if Ayuk isn't signed, there's always a possibility that maybe they get like a Ladd McConkey kind of guy that could maybe fit right into Kyle Shanahan's offense.
yeah. And I
Um,
gotta say, Fatanu, from your first mock draft to this one, has to be the largest fall right now. You
yeah, I
had him at
feel
10, but the O line in this draft are taking hits.
Yeah, they are, and I feel like it will work out well for every other team.
Yeah, for the good
Because
teams, they all just get
yeah.
better protection.
Now Kansas
It's
City
good.
is a really interesting one to me. They definitely could go. playmakers here. Tyler Guyton sitting right there. And it makes a lot of sense why they want to go him, especially with protection. Lad McConkey's right there. I do think though that they end up going Guyton. And the only reason
Nice.
why is because they got Hollywood Brown with Rushy Rice, and now you get Travis Kelsey. They could opt for a wide receiver here if they choose to, but I think that the hope is that Brown will have a good season. He's only 26, and they can sign him to a nice 3-4 year deal and have him for the foreseeable future, which if they get a wide receiver in like 1 or 2 more years. So that's what I
Yeah.
think that their plan is. And you know what the best play of action when in doubt? Protect Patrick Mahomes, who can win with anybody on his team. All right.
That's
So,
true.
all right. He can win with
I
Kadarius
agree.
Toney twice in back-to-back years. All right. He can do anything.
Yeah. And all these playoff teams getting O-line upgrades, it's just better for everybody.
It's awesome. This is the second draft. We'll have it posted here. So I got Caleb Williams going one. My last pick is Tyler Guyton with a handful of guys in between. My offensive line, though, they take a bad hit here. I feel bad. I love the offensive line, although you got to give me credit where credit's due. I do got Jackson Powers Johnson going a little bit earlier.
Yeah,
And
I
everybody
will
else has
say
him.
I was happy to see everybody who needs a quarterback get one. I was happy to see a guy like Brian Thomas who gets a lot of credit going up. I was happy as a Giants fan to see Malik Neighbors in there. So this draft, it's loaded with offensive talent, offensive line talent, and all the defense as we see the rankings really die out there. So it's good to have everything set up where you can have these Jacob's ladders fall in, especially that Jackson Powers Johnson pick. I know you have him locked and loaded in Seattle. I love that pick.
I like him. We're gonna keep him in that Pacific Northwest. But that's my second mock draft. That's what we got going on. Stick around. We have a ton more draft content coming your way because we got some time before the draft.
Heck yeah, we do. And this draft is a good one. We love it, and it's going to be awesome. Stay tuned. Thank you for watching Just Saying Football on YouTube, Just Saying Football with no G, Just Saying Football on Spotify, and Just Saying with no G, WJS on Instagram. Check out all of our clips to know when they're up. Thanks for watching.
Enjoy.